We're here. Welcome back. Tuesday night sports nightly. Oh, this is a good time, right? Going to be fun. Greg Sharp along with Ben McLaughlin, who never, I repeat, never swung at a 3-0 pitch.
Don't know if that's right. I think I maybe have once or twice. I was never good enough, like once I got to high school, to just have to be that guy to have the green light. But I was a pretty good, like, select baseball player to where I think a few times coach said, if you like it, swing at it. But I was always, like, fond of the walk. So, like, I never really wanted to swing 3-0. So I don't think I Fernando Tatis'd it very often, if ever.
How amazing that story's gotten that much play. Well, they were up 6 or 7 runs late. He is ahead in the count 3-0. And he whacks one out of the ballpark for a grand slam to blow a game open last night. Then the Rangers throw at Manny Machado, who hits behind him. You know, then he Austin just gave you in the ticker some suspensions today. I come down on the side of Tatis. I know it's probably one of those unwritten rules. We're going to talk more about unwritten rules in sports later on. I don't care. Come on. You're up there getting your at-bat. I have no problem with him swinging away last night in that game.
I watched that game. Like, I saw the whole thing happen. And the thing that, to add a little context for those that didn't watch the Padres-Rangers game last night, unlike I did.
You got such a great life.
Yeah. The thing that was crazy about that game is 2 innings before that, it was a close game until Fernando Tatis hit a 3-run home run. And that kind of, it gave him a little bit of cushion, and then obviously the grand slam put it out of reach. But look, here's a bottom line, and I tweeted this earlier. You're a professional. Like, you guys are all professional Major League Baseball players. They don't have a run rule in your game for a reason. You play all 9 innings, and you get through it. And then once the game's over, the game's over. If you don't like a guy swinging away 3-0, have better command of your pitches. Don't go down 3-0. If you're concerned he's going to whack it out of the ballpark, walk him. Bring up the next guy. So, absolutely, I have no qualms with it. I should, because I'm going up against Fernando Tatis in fantasy baseball this week, and he had 2 home runs, 7 RBIs yesterday, a couple of hits today, and a stolen base today. The guy is just an absolute animal. I didn't have any problem with it. And I think the fact that he felt the need to apologize was an absolute joke. And Coach Erstad would always talk about the baseball gods and how poetic justice of it today in the first inning of the Rangers and the Padres. Will Myers whacks a grand slam in the first inning to go up 4-0. So it looks like the Padres are going to win that game, as Austin told you, up 6-4 in the top of the 8th inning. I loved it. I love the fact that Myers went deep today. And, look, I am not a Padres fan. I am not a Rangers fan. I didn't know who Woodward was before today. But, yeah, that's a joke. And the fact that it's – and I have seen so many more people in favor of Tatis. I don't know that I've seen a single person other than somebody from the Rangers club have a problem with Tatis swinging away at 3-0. I mean, to anybody that's a part of the game, has been a part of the game, is a fan of the game, has zero issue with it.
That's what I was going to ask you. What percentage of baseball people are okay with that? I was going to say maybe 80%. It might be higher, because you're right. The only pushback that I've seen has been from the Rangers about how that was just wrong. That's BS. You don't do that. Everybody who has ever played this game knows that. They just threw a tantrum about it. But even Trevor Bauer tweeted in favor of Tatis earlier today. He's one of the more flamboyant.
And he's a pitcher.
Right. He's a pitcher. He's also not afraid to share his opinions with you. He was in favor of Tatis, like you said, get ahead in the count, no fall behind 3-0, and play the game. Make a pitch. In that he's trying to make a swing, you got to make a pitch. But, man, it it's been a huge topic today, so I thought we'd lead off with that. And I mentioned that we're going to be talking more about unwritten rules. That, in fact, is our top 10 list tonight, unwritten rules in sports. Some were pretty interesting as I dug into that throughout the day today to put my list together. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun one to get into in a couple of hours.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about it in the 8 o'clock hour, but I made it a point on my list to not look any up, because if it's unwritten, it should be something I already know.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'm interested to see what you guys put on yours, because I think I do have 3 or 4 baseball ones on mine, and none of them have to do with 3-0 or when you can swing and when you're not allowed to swing.
Well, I would think baseball probably has more of them than any other sport. When you sit and think about those type of things, that terminology comes up with the sport of baseball more than it does football, basketball, anything else. So, actually, I've got a couple hockeys on my list.
I do have a hockey one on mine.
Not to give all of my secrets away, but we'll get into that in hour number 3. Here is what we have on the program tonight. Sam McEwen of the Omaha World-Herald has been chasing all this craziness of college football in the Big Ten. We'll get his take on what's been happening over the last couple of weeks as it relates to college football. Sam's coming up here in a few minutes. Hour number 2, Bill Landis from The Athletic, who covers the Ohio State Buckeyes, will join us. We'll get their version of what's been going on in the last week or so. They've kind of supplanted Nebraska as the team being the most aggressive about this in the last 7 days. First with the comments of Ryan Day that he didn't get a ton of backing really from his administration, I didn't think. But then Justin Fields starting the player petition, We Want to Play, to the parents there that jumped on board after the Iowa parents kind of put together their letter to deliver to the league office. So Bill Landis will join us in hour number 2 to kind of give us a boots-on-the-ground picture from Columbus in the state of Ohio. We'll also unveil a new little feature for us tonight called Beyond the Headlines. It's a takeoff of 7 on 7, but we've had to retire 7 on 7 because this isn't the time of the year. We'll have some fun with that. Austin and Brett put their heads together. We'll get into that in hour number 2. Top 10 Tuesday coming your way in the beginning of hour number 3. And we're going to catch up with Steve Warren, former Husker who runs the Warren Academy up in Omaha. He's been really trying to find his former teammate, Ralph Brown. He's really been rallying former Husker players to kind of send up a flare for their former teammate. And the bizarre story that we shared with you on Friday night that Ralph Brown has been missing off the grid for 12 months now. The mother of his children can't find him. He has disconnected his phone. When she's reached out to his family, they won't communicate with her. They don't want anything to do with his children. It's a really sad and strange story because Ralph Brown is a very gregarious guy, always with a smile on his face. I'm concerned. I'm worried about Ralph. I hope this story turns out well. I think it might. I think it has the potential to maybe turn out okay because I don't think he was in any health issues, and if the family isn't talking to the girlfriend and the mother of the children, that tells me that maybe they are having some communication with Ralph. But Steve Warren's trying to rally some Huskers to find out maybe if anybody's talked to him, seen him, bumped into him, whatever. We'll talk to Steve in hour number 3. All right, now back to the Big Ten story. Ben, another day has come and gone without any comment from the league office. So we're now at the 1 week mark. It was last Tuesday that the decision, the announcement of no Big Ten football for the fall, and then the disastrous interview from the commissioner with Dave Revson of BTN, which he followed up a few hours later with more poignant comments to Yahoo Sports in an interview that he gave. But I don't think he's given any other interviews from that point forward. How surprised are you that we're sitting here 7 days out and still have very little explanation from the league and its commissioner?
You know, at this point, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think he's so far in over his head on this situation that he doesn't know what to do. And I feel like if he was confident in his answer, we would have heard from him by now. I mean, I feel like he would have doubled down. He would have given more information. I mean, the amount of public pressure that's being put on him right now is pretty severe, pretty significant. And it's the fact that there's still crickets after all this is pretty telling. And I don't know. I know we've heard from some league spokesmen, from some sources around the Big Ten Conference office, who's kind of maybe issued some quick statements or texts or phone calls with quotes to reporters, but we have heard nothing from an official standpoint from anybody in the league office. And I think that's really telling, especially considering the amount of national attention now. This is, as we were talking about yesterday, this has gone bigger than just a disgruntled Nebraska. This has grown to a nationwide college football issue that everybody is aware of. And I think a big reason why is the assistance of Ohio State in this deal, and Iowa and Michigan. I still think that there's a certain amount of venom that some national folks who have had their head in the clouds the last week have toward Nebraska. But it's bizarre, Greg, that we have not heard anything. And it's been a week, and I'm beginning to think if we haven't heard anything by now, nothing will come out. And like I said, I felt this way a week ago, that just the flub of the press conference was enough to ruin his reputation, that being Kevin Warren, the new Big Ten commissioner. It's only getting worse. And for those that maybe still had a chance to switch their opinion on him, the longer that goes by, I don't know that very many people feel that way now, especially on the campuses of Lincoln, Iowa City, Ann Arbor, and Columbus, Ohio. I think it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of rebuilding of trust, communication, transparency, all those things that we have not had for that type of relationship to be restored or reinvigorated. It's a bad look, that's for sure. The Big Ten is getting a really, really bad look right now.
Here's one theory out there, that they're waiting for more bad news to pile up so that they can sit there and go, we told you so. And Austin had a little bit of that in the ticker. Michigan State has already informed their student body, stay home. You're going to begin the semester, probably have the entire semester online. Notre Dame has had to shut down classes after a week, telling their students, stay in the dorm. We're going to go virtual for a couple of weeks. They're not saying for the rest of the semester, for a couple of weeks after several hundred students have tested positive for COVID. North Carolina's campus has had to shut down because of that. Maybe the Big Ten is just waiting for enough of these that they can sit back and go, told you. We told you this was going to blow up. We knew this. This is what we were anticipating. This is why we made the decision. That's my theory, that they just want this to pile up a little bit so that they can go, yep, see, we were on it, and we were ahead of our time in this whole thing.
They're not going to talk unless they have something positive, as you said, to reinforce their point. They're not going to talk just to appease the people, because I don't think they have the answers. If they had the answers that people wanted to hear, we would have heard from them by now. So I think there's a lot of validity to what you were saying, and yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all until maybe even another league cancels or all three of them decide to postpone. Then you might hear something. But yeah, what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
I saw today a number, and I need to double check it, but I want to throw it out there anyway. That's what we do. That like 134 schools play Division I FBS football. 77 are still, as of right now, slated to play. You have the Power 3, the other Power 3 conferences. You have the Sun Belt, you have the AAC, and you have Conference USA that are all still a go for college football this fall. So we'll see this. We're getting closer. We're inching closer. There's pads happening at practices now in college football for some teams that play. I think the first official game is, and Austin can double check me on this, I believe it's Thursday, September the 3rd, and it's Southern Miss and maybe UAB. That's a game that's right now on the schedule, hasn't been postponed, hasn't been canceled. We're not that far away, Ben, from September the 3rd being here.
No, and I'm imagining what it must be like if indeed some of these seasons do get canceled. How how close you would get to kicking off and getting through the workout period, then getting through the first portion of fall camp without pads, then putting pads on, and then as we know, the stages of fall camp, then it's game prep, and then you're past the install, you're into the game prep. To have your season ripped away from you at that point would just be devastating. I mean, as devastating as it was for us to have a week ago, we never even got the pads on, but to come so close. And there are some conferences, Greg, that may happen. It might be, I don't want to say a Big Ten basketball scenario where games are getting called at halftime, but where we're counting down the days to kickoff, and then all of a sudden something crazy happens, like we've seen on the campus of Alabama and Tuscaloosa with all the students at bars and whatnot that end up causing something to happen, but. Yeah, I mean, as of right now, every day that goes by is another day that you can rip off that calendar. We have college football. I mean, that's just going to be so heartbreaking for us to sit here and watch college football if Nebraska is not a part of it.
I had half the matchup right. It's South Alabama against Southern Miss. Will you watch?
Sure. Why not?
September the 3rd. That's the first FBS game on the docket. Still there. That is what, 2 weeks from Thursday? Got my math right? Is that right? Yeah. 2 weeks from Thursday. Oh, my.
Wow.
All right. Those are the topics. If you want to be a part of the program, here are the numbers: 531-500-4686, 531-500-4686. It doubles as our U.S. Cellular text line. U.S. Cellular, the official wireless provider of Husker Athletics. We'll come back and chat with Sam McEwen of the Omaha World Herald. We'll do that next. Back Sports Highlight Tuesday night. Greg Sharp with you. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us here. We do appreciate that. And we welcome on board the program now Sam McEwen of the Omaha World Herald. You can read his work online at omaha.com. Sam, wow, what a roller coaster the last couple of weeks have been for fans, coaches, players. This has been nothing short of crazy.
It has. It's been, from the Wednesday when the schedule was released, and it still seemed a little unsure. By Saturday, it had turned to uh-oh. And then it seemed like it was going to get rescued at least for a couple of more weeks. And then the Big Ten postpones and everything since. I mean, it's been a complete whirlwind. It's an odd thing to cover as a reporter because, there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much that Nebraska can do. I mean, everybody knew where Nebraska stood. It wasn't a matter of where Nebraska stood on this issue. It was whether, they had enough allies to push. And at the time that it kind of all went down, I don't know that enough schools were aware of the potential consequences. But now I think more schools probably understand that, and they're looking at 3 other leagues trying to push forward. It looks pretty concerning.
Are you surprised by the lack of transparency by the league office?
I am a little bit. I think that the league, the Big Ten, the presidents, and the chancellors, whether or not I agree or disagree with their decision, I think they thought Kevin Warren would explain it. I don't think they hoped or thought he was going to go out and talk for 20 minutes on BTN and not come up with much clarity. He seemed tired. He seemed, just a little bit like, his mind was, kind of maybe going in 4 or 5 different directions. And I'm sure as some of the presidents who voted to postpone watched that, they were like, that's not good. And so I think some of it falls on him for not being able to explain it very clearly. I didn't really agree with Barry Alvarez, but he gave an answer after Kevin Warren was on there about contact tracing. It was at least something. So there was – I think that's part of the issue is that they kind of thought he was going to go out there and kind of lay it out, and he didn't. They apparently did not have a prepared medical document like the Pac-12. Again, not sure I really agree with the Pac-12 medical document. Certainly the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 don't. So I don't think that's an answer alone, but that seemed to please people more, that at least there was a piece of paper that people could look at and read and count on. And the Big Ten just really hasn't provided that. And then, he's having to sort of clean up his answers in subsequent interviews that he's doing with national media sites and never really giving a press conference and never really answering hard questions. It's been a rough, It's been a rough week for the Big Ten. Usually this is the spot reserved for the Pac-12. And the Big Ten, which has never been this league, they've always been real clear about where they stand, has suddenly become a league that everybody's kind of looking at and going, what is going on there? And right now it just seems like a lot of dissension, a lot of uncertainty among the members. And quite frankly, I think we've seen in the last week that the two teams that are the biggest rivals in the league, Ohio State and Michigan, are on different sides of this conversation, which I find to be very interesting too. Ohio State is on Nebraska's side here, and Michigan is not.
You made the comment that after the presidents voted, the commissioner didn't really go out and articulate the reasons very well. There's even some dispute saying whether they voted or that they just kind of have a discussion, and Kevin Warren took the direction of the discussion that it was enough to say we're shutting her down. That seems to be also a confusing point of contention after this, doesn't it?
It does. I don't know if there's ever an official vote taken. I think it was probably always a comfort poll or something like that. I have a pretty good sense that there was probably about 6 schools that were in favor of playing, maybe 7. But, you can see pretty clearly the schools that weren't, based on the statements they released afterward. I mean, Michigan was not in favor of playing. Michigan State was not. Wisconsin was not. Minnesota was not. That's all pretty clear. So, you can tell there were some schools that were really hesitant or just simply didn't agree with going forward. And, it's hard to tell. Now, granted, if it's that close of a decision, from my framework, you got to have a commissioner who understands, all right, we really haven't decided yet. There's not a settled feeling among the group. So let's keep the guys in the helmets and the shorts. Let's move the schedule back because we have this flexibility to do so. Let's move it back 2 weeks. Let's keep them in the helmets and shorts. Let's bring the guys back on campus. And if all of these campuses have coronavirus outbreaks, and I don't think they all are going to, but a few might, then maybe we revisit our decision in a couple of weeks. We didn't risk anything by putting them in pads. They stayed in their helmets and shorts. I can't understand how that decision was not made. Like how they're, if you're reading that room and you can see that it's a fairly clear split, then just keep status quo. We're going to move the schedule back 2 weeks. We're going to practice a little bit more, and we're just going to play it out a little. By canceling it so early, they put themselves in a little bit of a hard spot, A, in reversing their decision, and B, they kind of leave their players out there a little bit. Now, I don't know that a lot of them will transfer. I just don't think that's going to happen because there's not a lot of spots available on other teams because of scholarship limits. But I mean, they put their they put their rosters in a little bit of trouble there, and I think the athletic directors have to be just really frustrated. I'm sure the coaches are too with the inability to push that decision a few weeks down the road so that we had a clear understanding of how maybe this could or could be done.
Again, visiting Sam McKeown of the Omaha World Herald. You can read his work online at omaha.com. Pushing it back, I think just talking to Bill Moose on this program last week and listening to interviews that Ted Carter has done, I think that's what Nebraska was certainly pushing for, don't you think?
Yes, I think that, there were some schools that wanted to play in early September, 2 or 3 weeks ago. But once it became clear that there was some discomfort with practicing in pads and playing the games in early September, then delay was probably the direction they wanted to go in. The Big Ten was a little bit twixt in between. The one thing that the SEC had is when they made their decision, they knew that the coronavirus cases in a lot of those states are still really high. And, they don't have to worry about that yet because they're not that close to their season. They're still 40 days away. Mm-hmm. Same thing in the Pac-12. California's coronavirus cases were really high. They're unusually worried in the state of Oregon. They don't actually have that many cases there, but there's an unusual amount of concern about it spreading quickly. And so they bought themselves some time. In the Big Ten, there's some states that actually have really turned the corner and maybe weren't in as bad a shape as some of the states in the Sun Belt. Nebraska is one of those. Honestly, New Jersey is. I mean, New Jersey's not having an outbreak right now. They're on the very low side of things. But then you had a couple of states. I think there was some issue in Wisconsin, specifically in Madison, there was some issue there. And I think there was some growing concern again in Illinois and Ohio. Now, Ohio just cleared football today, so that's good news for that state. But I think the schools I mentioned there, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, has shut down football for the fall, which reads a little more political than pragmatic. But, there were some states there where, there was a big difference in perspective. And so where Nebraska's at from a governor, president, chancellor, AD, coach perspective is very different from where Jim Harbaugh is in respect to his governor. You know what I'm saying? There's just a different alignment there. Nebraska had alignment all the way up to the highest office in the state. I don't think Michigan or Michigan State had that.
Yeah, and that didn't help their cause. Sam, this could really be disastrous for the Big Ten, I think, if those three big conferences pull this off. And they don't have all the eligibility issues that they're going to have to deal with. They're going to be able to clear a senior class out, bring in a new group of guys. Well, the Big Ten's going to be just with a glut of rosters. That's going to be hard to sell on the recruiting trail, I would think, don't you?
I do. We're going to have to see how the eligibility thing plays out by Friday. Now, my sense of it is that the NCAA is not going to go to the proposal that the West Virginia AD has out there. He's the football oversight guy. Is everybody gets a free year, whether they play in the fall or the spring or not at all. And so that's what he wants. Now, I'm guessing that's what a lot of the Power 5 schools want. And they may get their way, and these kids at Alabama may play this fall. They may not lose a year of eligibility. So it could be that what they want to propose is everybody gets a free year so that those ACC, Big 12, and SEC schools are in the same hot pot that the Big 10 and the Pac-12 are if they go in the spring. If there is a difference in that option, so the option that the D1 Council put out was if you play in half your team's games, you lose your year of eligibility. Now, my sense is if that happens, then the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC do not have scholarship or eligibility issues that the Big 10 and the Pac-12 would. And that's tough. That's you're absolutely right about the recruiting trail. It becomes harder. For what it's worth, just because if there were a new scholarship limit, which I suspect there will be either way, let's say it's 100, you'll see teams that do not even try to carry 100. It won't surprise me if a school says, we're just going to carry our 85 and we're going to tell our seniors to take care, and they can come back another. We're not going to sign. We're not going to keep all of our players. We're going to let some go, and that would be hard to do. But I don't know that every team would go up to 100. I think Nebraska would try to accommodate as many as possible, knowing the kind of person that Scott Frost is and his team. But I don't think every school can afford it. I mean, it's a lot of money, and once you put those scholarships on, then you have to be commensurate with other scholarships in other sports, and I'm not sure that other schools would do it. So that's a huge question mark, and that we'll have that answer by Friday, and I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Last thing for you, Sam, you talked about the money part of it. That I got to believe the bean counters at North Stadium are trying to figure out how they're going to massage this for the next 12 months. I think there could be some really dark days ahead for the athletic department in the coming weeks. How do you get a read on that at all right now?
Yeah, I'm praying for them. They have one of the hardest, most depressing jobs in the state right now. Now that doesn't mean that they're not out there treating people with COVID, but man, what a hard role to be in at this moment to try to figure out how you're going to make cuts, where you can make money, what program is going to have less support. Heaven forbid you got to cut a couple of sports. I think that's on the table, and that's something that Nebraska never ever wanted to do. So there's a lot of different things out there that they have to kind of work through, and it could be really, really bad. It was going to be bad anyway, even if they played a fall season. Moose brought that up last week, and I thought he was smart to do that because he's like, well, we were going to have 2 less home games either way, so we were already going to be kind of in the hole. But to have none at all and to not have that TV money at this moment it's just, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And, just kind of like every recession, when you're we're getting hit with it right now, the repercussions don't hit for, months. And you're going to feel that for years to come. It doesn't hit all at once. Unfortunately, financial, complications tend to linger. And so what you just hope is that they're able to get a football season in, whether it's this fall or it's in the spring, and they're able to mitigate that damage as much as possible, because whatever damage happens now will carry forth for a couple of years. It's just how that kind of stuff works, and you just feel awful that no one works harder than Nebraska's athletic department in that area. No one. It's an incredible athletic department. They do well. They've always given money to the university side of things. You want to talk about people who do it right without breaking the rules, and they care about the kids, and they really care, and they treat them right. And to see that happen to that department is just, profoundly unfair.
Yeah, going to be sad. Stan, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for the insight, and we'll just. Sam McEwen, Omaha World Herald, joining us on our Sports Sunday Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. All right. Got to try to keep finding positive things, right, during these tough times and tough times to come. Here are the numbers. You want to be a part of it? 531-500-4686. You can also use that as a text. We've got some great texts that have come in the last few minutes as we were talking with Sam. We'll review some of those. Again, 531-500-4686. Back with Ben and more next. 531-500-4686, the number if you want to dial us up with a comment or question or shoot us a text on our U.S. Cellular text line. I kind of went at the end of the Sam interview, because it was kind of depressing to talk about what could be coming down the pike with some elimination of programs for Husker athletics. And I think there are some dark days coming, and I think if we don't kind of primp everybody for this, it could just really be a tomahawk in the coming weeks. A lot of reaction on the Twitter line about the commissioner. Steve in Omaha says, would Jim Delaney ever come back as Big Ten commissioner to save it? I don't think Jim Delaney wants to be within 500 miles of Chicago right now. Maybe I'm wrong, Ben, but I think he's been in his cabin in North Carolina or whatever and go, whew, I'm not dealing with that anymore.
Reminds me of Jim Delaney kind of looks like the dad in Step Brothers, so I can imagine him having a boat, thinking about sailing, going on, buying some type of small yacht and just not having a care in the world. So, yeah, I don't think he wants to touch this mess.
Aaron in Lindsay, Nebraska said Big Ten commissioner needs to resign. He's got egg on his face, and apparently he can't handle the job. And Brad in Holdridge, I want your take on this, Ben. He says, I didn't think I would, but I will be a fan of whatever conference plays sports this fall. Glad to hear other Big Ten schools feel the same way as Nebraska does, and glad to see some national pressure. Whether the Big Ten commissioner ends up being right or wrong, he has lost virtually all credibility for himself in the conference with his lack of explanation and communication. That's Brad in Holdridge.
Yeah, I think Brad brings up a point to where there's probably a lot of resentment that's going to be shown to the Big Ten. Now, how far does that resentment go? Do you become fans of other teams? What does that all entail? I'm not sure. I think it depends on the individual person, but that take doesn't surprise me at all. I think there are a lot of people that are in Big Ten country that have gotten used to what football means to this conference and to this league, to the people of the league, to the coaches, to the fans, and to just have it ripped away with basically no explanation. It's not good enough for a lot of different people. That's become abundantly clear.
Carl in Lincoln says, can the University Foundation offset the one-year loss of athletics? I know they're not supposed to provide operational money, but during a pandemic, does that change things? Carl, I don't know. That's a good question. I think you're right, though. I think the pots are supposed to be separate. You're not supposed to dip your hand in one to help the other and vice versa. I don't know that that's right. We've been told that Nebraska had a fairly sizable nest egg built up in their athletic department. They certainly can dip into that. If you've got a rainy day fund, this is when you use a rainy day fund, right? I mean, this is as bad as it's going to get. I mean, you have a pandemic about every 50 years. So to me, this would certainly be why you have saved money from time to time and year to year to try to get through something like this. I'm sure they're looking under every glass and pot to see if they can find something.
Yeah, this isn't just a rainy day. Tornadoes come and just blowing the roof off your house. I mean, this is about as worse of a scenario as you. I mean, losing 80 to 85% of your budget is about as doomsday as it gets. And so, yeah, I mean, if you've got the ability to pull funds elsewhere, I think you're tapping into every resource that you can. And the thing that makes it tough for Nebraska, Greg, and the whole angle of trying to raise money to build a practice facility, they were already in the mode of trying to fundraise and add money, but now that you're in the same kind of mindset, just with a lot more urgency, and it's a lot more necessary. I mean, you're talking about saving jobs, saving programs, saving everything. So, yeah, there's a lot of urgency right now.
Bryant, and we'll finish with this segment with this. Bryant Columbus sent us a text. If the Big Ten sticks with no season, could the Huskers have a couple red-white games to just help not lose as much money? The answer is no, because right now the Big Ten schools are under a mandate that they can't put pads on. They are frozen, and you can go work and do some workouts and spend some time around your team, but it can only be in what they call the shells, and that's no pads. And so that's not an option. And I don't know, maybe the Big Ten rescinds that rule, Ben. Maybe they allow you to do kind of instead of a spring game, at a fall game, or you kind of have an inter-squad thing, and maybe you could do that. I don't know. I guess that's possible that maybe they would relook at that in the coming weeks. But then the argument would be, well, if you're doing that, why are we not playing? I mean, yeah. I think that's the thing. If they concede on that point, then they're going, well, then we should have been playing some games.
You're adding a lot of gray area if you do that, and I don't know that the Big Ten's willing to even go down that road. So, I mean, I think even if you were just to say, okay, you can put pads on in practice, there are going to be some schools that do it and some schools that do not. And the schools that are practicing with pads on, you're going to see even more of a push to say, why can't we drive over to Iowa to play a game? Why can't we have South Dakota State come here and play a scrimmage? That it's like, the little kid begging for a gummy bear at dessert, and they end up having a cheesecake. That's kind of what it turns into. So I would be shocked if they lift it just for that reason.
You said that like you've done that before.
I have not, but I know some people that have. Let's just say that. My daughter's not quite old enough to pull on Dad's leg yet to see what she can get away with.
No, it's coming. All right, keep the text coming. Also the calls, 531-500-4686. Back with more Sports Sunday next. 500-4686. Final few minutes of hour one here of Sports Sunday on a Tuesday night. Big upset in the NBA today, Ben, as the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks go down to the number 8 seed in game one of their series as Orlando turns them back by a dozen. I mean, that's an 8 beating a 1, and now, Milwaukee probably comes and wins the next 4 and takes them out, but that was impressive today for Orlando.
How about those Magic? I said yesterday that I was more confident in Milwaukee than I was the Lakers, and that shows how much I know about the NBA. And then Milwaukee goes and loses to the Orlando Magic.
We all, you, Tim, and I last night, made our picks for what we think will be the NBA Finals. Austin's with us tonight. Austin, we got to get you on record. This is day 2 of the playoffs. We can't let you just float along too long before you make a pick. Who do you like coming out of the East and coming out of the West?
Well, I think it's dumb to bet against Milwaukee coming out of the East, but I'm tempted to do it. They haven't looked good this entire restart. So I want to go with the Bucks. I think it's the safe choice. I'll ultimately pick the Bucks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Heat make it. I really wouldn't. I think they have a good combination of defense and shooting, and they can match up decently well with the Bucks. So I'll go Milwaukee out of the East with Miami as my dark horse, and it's a coin flip between the two Los Angeles teams in the West. I think LeBron and AD are the better duo, but I think the Clippers find a way to get it done in 7 and give me the Clips over the Bucks in the NBA Finals.
Finally, somebody in our group is different, Ben. We went all chalk. We went all Colhane last night with Milwaukee and the Lakers, so it's good to have Austin kind of shake it up a little bit for us.
That's what I said, Austin. I said I'm going to go with the Lakers, but I could very easily see the Clippers winning that series and then getting that berth into the finals. I think they're a really good team. And I was way more confident in Milwaukee. Maybe not so much now, but I was confident in them yesterday and beyond. So we'll see. There's still a lot of series left, but I'm confident that Milwaukee will come out of there. Not so confident in L.A. I think it's probably 50-50 there.
Who was it? Was it in the Last Dance that somebody beat the Bulls in an early round series in one game? I think maybe game one, and then they just kicked their – it might have been Orlando.
I think it might have been, yeah. Or Charlotte. I think it was the Hornets.
Charlotte with B.J. Armstrong.
Yeah, because he was running his mouth, and then they just got slapped.
Yeah, just swept him out of the building with the next four. That could happen with the Bucks. But Austin's kind of right. Since the bubble, the Bucks haven't been great. We'll keep following that. Good stuff. It's just great having – you got playoff basketball on in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. You got playoff hockey going on. Not bad. Not bad, folks. Much better than we were 4 or 5 months ago with nothing happening. Our Sports Nightly Hotline brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Next hour, Bill Landis of The Athletic and our Beyond the Headlines feature coming your way next hour.
Alabama football announced fan attendance restrictions earlier today, saying that it would limit capacity to around 20% and disallow tailgating during the 2020 season. This comes on the heels of Notre Dame announcing it would be moving classes online for 2 weeks on the heels of a COVID-19 outbreak. Notre Dame also said if it did not see a reduction in cases over those 2 weeks, all students would be sent home, including football players. The NFL announced 2 more finalists for its next Hall of Fame class earlier today. The 2 up for induction are coach Tom Flores, who won a pair of Super Bowls with the Oakland Raiders in the early 80s, and Drew Pearson, an 11-year undrafted veteran of the Dallas Cowboys, who caught 489 passes for just under 8,000 yards in his career. Pearson led the league in receiving yards in 1977, helping Dallas to a Super Bowl victory. A bit of news from Major League Baseball. The league has suspended Texas Rangers pitcher Ian Gabot 3 games, as well as manager Chris Woodward 1 game for Gabot's retaliation against San Diego Padres third baseman Manny Machado last night. Gabot threw behind Machado following a grand slam by Fernando Tatis Jr. in last night's 14-4 San Diego victory. Padres beat the Rangers again today. It was a 6-4 victory for the Friars. The Giants topped the Angels 8-2 in an interleague matchup out west, and the Astros walked off the Rockies 2-1 in 11 innings in Houston. Games in progress right now. In the bottom of the 5th inning, the Diamondbacks have opened up a 9-1 lead over the Athletics. In the bottom of the 3rd frame, it's Rays 4 and Yankees nothing. Top of the 3rd, the Indians lead the Pirates 3-1, and halfway through the 3rd, it's Nationals 2, Braves 1. No score between the Mariners and the Dodgers in the top of the 4th. Also in the top of the 4th, the Mets lead the Marlins 3-0 in an NL East duel. It's 1-0 Red Sox over the Phillies in the top of the 2nd. In the bottom of the 2nd, the Orioles lead the Blue Jays 2-0. A couple NBA finals to give you from earlier today. A pair of 12-point wins. The Heat topped the Pacers 113-101, and the 8th-seeded Orlando Magic beat the top-seeded Bucks 122-110. In progress right now, the Rockets have a 2-touchdown 76-62 lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder, and tipping off in about an hour will be the Lakers and the Trailblazers. Live inside the Husker Sports Network studios, I'm Austin Norman.
Your state, your team, your show. This is Sports Nightly.
The triangle set to the top of the pattern. Now Spielman in motion to the near side. Rolling right is McCaffrey. Throws it toward the end zone. Wide open is Noah. Makes a catch. And it is a touchdown, Nebraska.
Now, let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Ben McLaughlin.
Thank you. We're here. Tuesday night Sports Nightly on the Husker Sports. I'm so glad you're choosing to spend a little bit of your Tuesday evening with us. Can you believe we already passed the midway point of August? Time just keeps trucking right along. We've got 4, count them 4, high school football games in the state coming your way. Week 0 games coming up on Friday night. It's a very, very skinny schedule. Everything else will get fired up a week from Friday, but it's here. Those schools that are playing this Friday didn't have a whole lot of practice time to get ready for the games, but we will have high school football coming your way in just a couple of days here in the state. All right, this hour, Bill Landis of The Athletics going to join us here in a couple of minutes. He covers the Ohio State Buckeyes their parents and their players have been very vocal about the Big Ten's decision to bang the football season from the conference last Tuesday, 1 week ago today. We'll have Bill here in just a couple of minutes. And then later on, we will kind of unveil a new version of 7-on-7. We put 7-on-7 away. It's more of a summer terminology. We'll call it Beyond the Headlines. Austin and Brett will have some topics for us to tackle a little bit later on in the hour. But right now, glad to welcome on board the program from The Athletic, Bill Landis, who does cover Ohio State sports. Bill, great to have you with us. How have you compartmentalized the last couple of weeks with all this news spinning around the Big Ten and its football?
I don't know that I have, to be totally honest. It's been pretty difficult. The week where they canceled, I went back and forth. I felt pretty good about maybe them getting a delay, and that didn't happen. And now since then, we know that places like Ohio State and Nebraska to an extent, and some of these parent groups or other schools are not done putting up a fight. So I don't have a firm grasp on what's happening, nor do I really think anybody does.
Shaun Wade, who's a terrific defensive player for the Buckeyes, his dad seems to really be riled up. I guess, is he flying to Chicago later in this week to take part in a protest? What is the latest with that?
Yes, so Shaun Wade's dad, Randy Wade, is flying from Jacksonville, Florida, or I guess Orlando, Florida, technically, up to Chicago on Thursday night with the intention of having a peaceful protest on Friday morning at or near the Big Ten offices in Rosemont, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. I'm not sure how much of a following he's going to have. I know some parents from Iowa had said they're going to be there to join him. I'm sure some Ohio State fans will be there to join him. I'm not totally sure if any other Ohio State parents are making the trip with him, but Randy has been very passionate about this from the jump, and I think that's an interesting perspective because he's the father of a kid in Shaun Wade who doesn't have to play football, and he'll likely be a first-round pick next year. Shaun could probably get paid tomorrow if he wanted to, whether that was endorsements or from agents or whatever, but Randy is kind of at the forefront of this Ohio State fight. He and Justin Fields, another guy who doesn't have much incentive other than just loving to play at Ohio State. So they're leading the charge. I'm not really sure what's going to come of it, but yeah, he'll be there in Chicago on Friday.
That's a great point. Neither guy should really need to have skin in the game at all because they're ready. They're set for the NFL. They're going to hear their names called next April or May or whenever the NFL decides to put their draft on, and yet they are fighting hard, and I think they've gained a lot of fans around the country for how hard they have pushed this. Bill, what kind of parental support was behind this letter? Do you have a number of parents that signed on to this? Was it a majority of the guys on the team, their folks that jumped on this?
Yeah, I think it was majority. I don't have a hard number for you. I've inquired about that. I've not gotten that. I don't think it was a fringe component by any means. Was it totally unanimous? Probably not, but it was certainly a great majority of the parents at Ohio State who were behind that letter that they sent out, and also behind helping Justin Fields, I think, get his petition out there, which the last time I checked was over 250,000 signatures, which is pretty insane. So this is a pretty strong cohort here in Columbus of Ohio State parents. I think they're pretty much all on the same page with wanting to try to get something either back on track for this fall or at the very least try to get some answers about why this happened.
Speaking of being on the same page, Nebraska, from the governor on down to the head coach, they've all been on the same page. Has that been the case at Ohio State from the highest office in the state down through Ryan Day? Have they all been on the same page as far as you can tell?
I'm sure if you asked the governor, he would say so because that'd be good politics. But he has not really been out there showing support for Ohio State, and not I don't think because he doesn't want to. It hasn't gotten to that level yet. The university president, Ohio State's in a weird position where it's between presidents, and the new president doesn't actually start until next week when the semester is supposed to start. So she was involved in the vote or non-vote, whatever it was, that when they decided to not do this, but she technically does not take office until next month. So we haven't heard from her. There were some people around Ohio State who sort of let it be known that she was in favor of delaying and not postponing the season. But the two most sort of vociferous people, really the most vociferous people in this have been the parents and some of the players and some of like the assistant coaches on the staff. But Ryan Day and Gene Smith, the head football coach and athletic director, are very aligned here. There's just it's not quite the same situation like you have in Nebraska where it's from the top of the state legislative, all the way down.
Right, and one of the reasons I ask that, and you're a lot closer to Michigan than we are here, it doesn't seem like they're on the same page at all there, from their governor's office to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh seems to kind of be fighting this thing by himself up there in Ann Arbor, and I know a Buckeye probably will never say something good about a Wolverine, but I just don't get the sense that I think Harbaugh is fighting his own people to try to get something done.
Yeah, it seems to me that that's the case as well. And then the Michigan parents who put out a letter also addressed it to their university president because I think it's pretty well known that their university president was on board with not playing either. And one of the craziest things that's happened in all of this, honestly, is that there are people on Ohio State's coaching staff and Ohio State parents retweeting things from Michigan parents and Michigan coaching staffs. Like, they're in solidarity together, believe it or not, trying to get a season off the ground here, and it's rather remarkable.
It takes a pandemic to bring everybody together. Again, we're visiting Bill Landis from The Athletic. He covers Ohio State. What's the sentiment about the prospect of playing spring football? Because Urban Meyer, the former coach of the Buckeyes, has said absolutely not. He thinks it's a terrible idea. What about Gene Smith, Ryan Day? What kind of sense do you get? Do they feel like spring is doable, possible? Do they want to do this?
Yes, all of the above. Yes, I think they do, and it's a lot of optimism, obviously, but I think they are energized to find a way to do it. I think they certainly want to do it. Ryan Day got emotional, or borderline emotional, I guess I should say, when he was asked about just sort of how good this team could have been for Ohio State if this were a normal season. And he truly was on the verge of tears, it looked like, when he was talking about just how talented they are or were going to be. And I think a lot of that's tied to Justin Fields because he's obviously a very talented quarterback. So if there's any way for Ohio State to somehow get this team, as we were expecting it to look on the field, to compete for a championship, they're going to explore that option. Now, how realistic is that? I'm not sure, but yeah, they're trying to do it. I don't think it's just lip service at Ohio State.
Okay, my follow-up to that is, if there is football at the Big Ten level in the spring, do guys like Fields and Wade play with the NFL draft so close? Well, do you get a sense? I mean, obviously they're fighting so hard here, maybe they would.
Shaun Wade's father, anyway, has all but said that if they don't play in the fall, Sean's not going to play.
Gotcha.
I think Justin's a different story, and my line on that all along has been if somehow nobody plays this fall, which I think is still possible, and everyone is looking to play in the spring, and they find a way to make a spring season that includes everyone and the chance to play for a legitimate national championship, maybe even have a legitimate Heisman Trophy race, and if the NFL were to play ball, and this is a lot of caveats, I think Justin Fields would play in that scenario.
Wow.
That's the only scenario I think he would play in.
Yeah, wow. Okay, Bill Landis again with us from The Athletic, talking about this whole story from the Ohio State perspective. Bill, I think I saw today that the state of Ohio has approved high school football for this fall. Is that correct?
That's right. High schools are going to play, and the University of Cincinnati is going to play. The Browns and the Bengals are going to play, and Ohio State is not.
That's going to be hard for Buckeye fans, isn't it? I mean, if there's a game Friday night up the road and you can watch the NFL action on Sunday, I mean, that's almost another gut punch in this thing, isn't it?
It's going to be really hard, yeah. And I'm sure people in Nebraska can empathize with that. I think one thing that's come out of this on a quick tangent is I think people kind of understood how important football is in the state of Nebraska, but the way that they fought to get their season back on track, and it's obviously the same way here in Ohio. And Ohio State's the flagship program. It's the one that kind of brings everybody together. There are factions for pro football and obviously high school football, but everyone seems to love Ohio State. And the idea that football in some capacity will be played in the state of Ohio, but the Buckeyes won't be playing is really hard to wrap your mind around.
It sure is. All right, last thing for you. We're all sitting here it was a week ago today that the announcement got made that the season was done, and yet we've not heard anything since that day from the league office or the commissioner. Are people there baffled why we haven't had some kind of follow-up from the league office?
Yes, totally. I'm baffled. The team's baffled. The fans are baffled. The parents are baffled, and they're angry. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's from a public relations perspective, this is being handled about as poorly as it possibly could be. I don't think that everyone is in agreement that the decision itself was wrong, but I think everyone is in agreement that the process with how they got there and the fact that they've not been transparent at all about it is really wrong. So, yeah, everyone here is waiting for answers like they are across the Big Ten. I don't know if we're going to get them. I think maybe they're going to wait until they have something to tell us about what the spring might look like before they tell us, what led them to make this decision.
Do you think there was a vote or not?
Like a hard raise your hand, who's in, who's out kind of vote? Maybe not. I think there was a discussion, and from that discussion, a consensus in the room was made, and that's how the decision was made.
If there had been, any idea what it might have been? Would it have been 9-5, 10-4, 8-6? What do you think?
I've heard so many different numbers that I would even hesitate to say what it was. I know, like, the initial report was 12-2, and then there was some stuff about 8-6. I've heard it all over the board, but I would say if I averaged out what I've heard, it'd be somewhere in the middle. Maybe something like 10-4 or 9-5 maybe, but certainly not a majority vote.
This is wild. Well, Bill, we'll continue to follow this as we all do throughout the conference. We just wanted to have you on because the Buckeyes have really been carrying the flag with their players, their parents, and we just wanted to hear some thoughts from your end of it. We appreciate you taking some time with us here tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. Bill Landis from The Athletic joining us on our Sports Sunday Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Ben will rejoin me, and we will debut Beyond the Headlines next. We're back on a Sports Highlight Tuesday night. Greg Sharp, Ben McLaughlin, Austin Orman in our studios. Brett Whitty also a part of the program tonight. During the summer months, we like to do a little feature nightly called 7 on 7. It's Brett's favorite thing we do all year long. He just pines for it all off season. And so tonight we're going to do it a couple times a week now, called Beyond the Headlines. And so, and Brett, you can jump in here. I mean, when we knew the season got canceled, that's the first thing I thought of was, well, Brett's going to want to do something like this.
Yeah, I've been pushing hard for this for probably 6 years now, and it's just great to get it done.
It's a long time coming.
It is.
Well, this is a piece of cake for you guys, right? Because this was, you're used to this with 7 on 7.
There is absolutely no shortage of news. That helps things out. There's always plenty to talk about. And on that same thought, listeners, this is where we want to prop up our text line. We encourage you, if you have any stories, anything you might make for a good topic, send it our way on the text line. Drop us a link. And I'm not promising we'll get it in, but if you drop us a link and we use it, leave your name, we'll see if we can shout you out on air then.
Beautiful. That's 531-546-86. That's our U.S. Cellular text line, the official wireless provider of the Huskers. All right, boys, take it away.
Let's jump into it. So you guys led off the show with this, and we're going to touch on this a little bit more at the top of the 8 o'clock hour with our top 10. But Fernando Tatis Jr. broke one of baseball's unwritten rules in swinging at a 3-0 pitch in a game the Padres led by 7 runs last night against the Rangers. That swing resulted in a grand slam, and earlier in the show we heard which side you guys would take in this argument between Tatis and the Fun Police. So we're going to ask a different question. If you could hit a homer and bat flip off of one pitcher, who would it be and why?
Oh, man. There's like 3 that come to mind immediately. I think number 1 for me is Fernando Rodney. If I ever hit a home run against Fernando Rodney, it would be...
Is it because the hat's tilted?
Oh, and just the way his stupid bow and arrow thing, like... You better believe every base that I touched, I'd whip out an arrow and shoot it into the stands. I might launch my bat into the stands. I mean, it might be one of those deals where, like, you flip the helmet up in the air, throw the batting gloves off, and do the Happy Gilmore riding the bull, doing the bull dance around the bases. Oh, he would never forget that I hit a home run off of him, because I would never have to do it again. I mean, that would be it for me. So he wouldn't ever get a chance to retaliate. But yeah, he or Pedro Strop would be right at the top of the list.
See, for me, I would want to do it off one of the game's greats, just to go, I hit one off one of the game. So give me Clayton Kershaw. I don't have any dislike of Clayton Kershaw, but if I hit one of those curveballs for his out of the park, I'd be flipping that bat all over the place.
I'm going a completely different direction. My roommate was a pitcher in college for a couple years before he transferred in, so I'd love to have one up on him.
There you go.
1 for 2 against him in my life. Didn't get one over the fence.
Hey, 500's average is pretty good, though.
If he would groove me one high and tight and I could turn on it and flip that bat, I would hold that over him for the rest of his life.
The one that comes to mind for me would be Madison Bumgarner back in the 2014-2015 era.
See, Brett's on my line. One of the game's elites. Do it off that guy. That's the good stuff. You got the crooked hat dude as you picked.
Yeah, I mean, I could rattle off of about 10 names of guys that I would love to just pimp one on.
Strope is up there for me as well, Ben. I'll say that. All right, topic number 2. I had to hit you with the soccer question here. Rumors have been swirling about a possible departure from Barcelona for Lionel Messi, as they do almost each season. Reports coming out of Catalonia this year that the decision for Barcelona comes down to keeping either Messi or the current board of directors due to how sour the relationship between the two has turned. With this current controversy, what are some situations in the sporting world where you remember an owner or board member causing the loss of a major athlete or even maybe preventing an athlete from signing in the first place?
That's a good one.
I mean, the LeBron situation in Cleveland was
Dan
bad.
Snyder, or not?
Yeah.
Dan Gilbert.
Dan Gilbert.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got toxic, didn't it? That was really toxic.
That letter that he wrote after he left was not good.
Yeah.
In Comic Sans.
Yeah, that one. That's the one that jumps to my mind the most is LeBron in Cleveland, and then he goes back, right?
Hey, Gilbert had no problem welcoming him back with open arms.
How about he wasn't the owner, but Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson and that whole thing in the Bulls.
Yep,
right.
and Scottie Pippen almost. Well, Scottie Pippen wanted to leave.
Yeah, there you go.
Krause, so.
Right, but Krause wasn't the owner, but he was a GM. It's same principle there.
Yeah, any kind of upper management. Another one that comes to mind that has been blocking some free agents would be James Dolan. Think about how many players would have gone to the New York Knicks over the last 15, 20 years that haven't.
Brett, he's easily one of the worst owners in professional sports. Dolan's right there.
It's him and Dan Snyder are probably the two that you think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll stick with basketball for topic number 3. 538.com recently released a new stat it plans to track throughout the rest of the NBA bubble. Not a traditional one and not even a super analytical one for 538, but the website will be tracking curse words per 48 minutes moving forward. The website cited Carmelo Anthony as the prime example of an athlete making TV companies keep their fingers on their dump buttons. So who's one past or present athlete you would trust to be mic'd up for a broadcast and one you wouldn't?
I mean, I hate to keep bringing him up in every single thing that we do, but Peyton Manning for me, I think
you could trust Peyton. I think,
or like a guy like Russell Wilson. I think you could. Who would I not trust? J.R. Smith.
How about Tiger Woods?
Oh, Tiger, yeah.
Justin Thomas.
Does Tiger get pretty?
Oh yeah. I mean, they
Tiger Woods, you suck. Is that not the greatest clip of all time? He says he hits a bad drive and then says he sucks to himself.
I mean, so many times he's cranked a drive off to one direction or the other, and it's dry. And this was before there were no crowds, and so now it's just even worse.
Marcus Peters would be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the trash talking DBs.
Pretty much any cornerback.
Deshaun Jackson would be bad. Marshawn Lynch wouldn't be great, but I'd love to listen to it.
Oh, Kevin Garnett back in the day. That'd be
KG.
Ultimate trash talker. And you know who also was a pretty darn good trash talker was MJ.
Yeah.
They said he was one of the worst.
That would be fun. They said he got real personal at times. So.
Yes. From that same era, John Stockton would probably be a guy you could probably mic up and be okay.
I feel like Magic Johnson would be fun.
Probably. He'd be fine.
Yeah, he'd be like almost encouraging you.
The thing is, the colorful language guys would be the best ones to listen to.
Well, yeah.
True.
If you could hear it, if you were listening to
well, that's what I mean. Yeah, you got to get the
uncensored broadcast.
If there was an uncensored channel of mic'd up athletes, like a subscription, like a Netflix, just take my money. Like I would, I would watch that.
How many zeros on this check do I need to write?
Oh yeah. NHL. Listen to NHL trash talking. Listen to those guys. Oh my goodness. I mean, you could learn some.
It's going to be in frickin' Scandinavian of some.
You could learn some new words rather quickly.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, sticking with the NBA topic, Boston Celtics guard Gordon Hayward has been hit with the injury plague for what feels like the 10th time now in his career. He's been ruled out for the next 4 weeks of the NBA playoffs due to an ankle sprain, putting the Celtics in a tough spot with facing the 76ers in the first round and then possibly Toronto if they do end up moving on. The Celtics' chances are hurt, but they aren't completely down and out without Hayward. But on that note, who are the guys that are so critical to their team that any injury during this playoff run is probably going to end their season?
Giannis,
yeah.
Yep, that's
Giannis
one, I think.
I mean, Dame doesn't have a chance anyway, but Dame.
Do you think CJ could lead that team, though? CJ and Nurkic?
No.
CJ's
no.
playing with a broken back right now, so.
Oh, he is? Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
LBJ, I mean, kind of the obvious ones that they need those guys to make the deep run, and that's part of it is who stays healthy. It's usually a little bit of luck that goes into winning a championship because you get guys hurt or not hurt. Yeah, you're right on Gordon. He's missed more games as a Celtic than he's played. It's probably not even close.
Couple things with Gordon Hayward. You should look at a photo of him coming out of college and then look at a photo of him now. Looks like two completely different people. And the other thing I think of when I hear Gordon Hayward is like he was a video game streamer for a while and did some video game streaming, and he was like, on the headset talking to his teammates. They're like in between games. He's like, yeah, I got time for one more. And then his wife comes in. He's like, no, you don't. You don't have time for one more. Turn it off. And so then he turned his video games off because his wife told him no, he didn't have time. That video is hilarious.
How about James Harden? He's pretty valuable, right, to the Rockets?
Yeah,
I mean,
and Russ isn't going to lead that team to the finals or anything.
They're my dark horse in the West. I think they could get hot.
Harden and
Austin,
Jokic. Yeah, I think
Austin, by the way, broke our trend. At least he picked somebody other than the Lakers to come out of the West. I'm proud of you, Austin.
Thanks. Tim's not on, and usually he's the contrarian, so I guess I'm his spiritual successor tonight. But
Philin.
Tim something, you're right.
No kidding.
Something.
What was that Greek film he threw at us last week, Ben? What the heck was that?
German horror film or something like that.
Yes.
After some
Slaughterhouse German
weeks ago.
horror film.
I may have to ban him from Flicks Picks because whatever he says, everybody's going to go, what? I ain't doing that. Are you kidding
I had to
me?
explain to Tim, you realize this is your reputation, right? You're the one suggesting this to people, and this is what people are going to think that you are like.
He is.
He's definitely outside the box when it comes to his film selection.
And very
Didn't watch
sarcastically,
Moneyball, but we'll watch Slaughterhouse.
Very sarcastically, I was like, Tim, well, it's at least in German. Can we at least read German subtitles? I mean, could listen to German. He's like, yeah, it's in German. You got to read the subtitles.
You got to read the subtitles to follow the movie.
Oh, no.
I didn't quite get to that this weekend. Just didn't quite make it there.
That didn't make it on your list?
No.
Dang it, Ben. You told me you were going to do that, and let me know what the hell it was.
All right, we'll stick with the international flavor here for our fifth topic. So a man in Australia made headlines after he punched a great white shark that was biting his wife while they surfed off the coast of New South Wales. So two questions for you guys. What's the most heroic thing you've done to protect your wife, and what would your action plan be in fighting a shark?
Didn't Mike Tyson do something with a shark here recently?
Probably.
Or am I dreaming that?
It is Mike Tyson.
I kind of feel like he punched a shark or something.
Yeah, I think there was some kind of special he was a part of a week or two ago on ABC or something where he punched a shark.
Oh, my goodness.
I know Michael Phelps raced a shark or they did something like that on Shark Week a few years ago.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, Mike Tyson did punch a shark during Shark Week.
Right. That's what I thought.
So wait, in a week where we celebrate sharks, we had Mike
He
Tyson
punches one.
physically assault one,
Smacked one.
Yes.
Because that's what you're saying. I mean, if you're ever getting attacked by a shark, that's what they say to do is punch it in the nose because that's the most sensitive part on the shark.
And you're not going to outswim one, that's for sure. So you're not going to
No,
fight.
I would
you're going
not
to fight.
Something I've done heroic for my wife. Ugh. This is bad because not a lot comes to mind.
I mean, I wouldn't really call it heroic because nothing ended up happening. But there was one time, and she was just my girlfriend at the time. It was at night and middle of the night, and it sounded like someone sounded like Brian Urlacher put his pads on and went through our apartment door. That's what it sounded like. And without even really thinking, let's be honest, most people that bust into an apartment in the middle of the night could probably take me and probably have some kind of weapon to help take me down. But my gut instinct, I jumped out of bed and ripped the bedroom door open like I was ready to take of Mike
on the
Tyson.
world.
Yeah, it was like Mike Tyson smelling blood in the water. I probably would have gone down, but I would have gone down swinging. And it was one of those things where you didn't even really think about it. It just kind of you just did it. And then afterwards I was like, huh. What if that guy was 6'5", 230 and had a bat? I would have had no shot.
We had just moved to Lincoln, and Amy was driving around with the girls and hit a curb and blew not one but 2 tires. And I remember being at work, and she's like, we're stranded. So I hike out there and take care of the car and get it to the – that's not overly heroic, but that's maybe, boys, about as good as I can do here.
That was one that actually came to mind, was just like changing
car
a
trouble.
tire even.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not heroic. It fits the criteria.
You can be a hero for a day, yeah. It's not as good of a story as maybe opening the door on someone with a bat, obviously, but...
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Not much would have happened. The ending of that story probably wouldn't have been good, but...
Well, we wouldn't have gotten
it's the thought that counts.
All right, moving on. Topic number 6 here. Alabama head coach Nick Saban told ESPN this morning that he fears a spring college football season would feel more like a JV season. Saban believes that pro prospects will opt out en masse with the NFL draft slated to start on April 29th. Do you guys think Nick Saban is being dramatic with this, or do you see his point?
It's funny that he described it as a JV. Imagine Nick Saban saying that. Like, that's just hilarious. That's a JV season.
Yeah, how about saying that to his kids that are on scholarship that would still be there? I think he has a point. We just had Bill Landis of The Athletic on, and he said Shaun Wade from Ohio State would definitely be gone if there's not fall football, but he thinks Justin Fields might be back. I think you'll have a fair number of guys that bail. Does that turn it into a JV season? No, not necessarily. It'll water it down some, but I don't think it totally goes to a JV season.
I can see where he's saying that because, I mean, there's probably in the neighborhood of 6 to 12% of Alabama football players that would fall into that category every year of players that would opt out. And so I can see Nick Saban saying, well, if I have to play with 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7 backups every year, it's basically like my second string. So I see where he's coming from on that for sure. It's funny how he described that, though.
Well, the thing is, Alabama's backups could probably be starters anywhere, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Good point.
Personally.
Well, hey, once Nick Saban gets run out of Tuscaloosa, he can take over a high school JV program and see what it's like.
See what it's really like, yeah.
All right, we'll wrap up beyond the headlines with this. So the Los Angeles Lakers announced if they make it out of the first round of the NBA playoffs, they plan to wear their Black Mamba edition jerseys throughout the remainder of the playoffs to honor Kobe Bryant. So if you guys could make one team wear its alternate or throwback jerseys for an entire playoff run, which team and uniform would you choose? Any sport. It doesn't have to be basketball if that helps.
You know what my favorite uniforms are? One of, I don't want to say my all-time favorite, but the first one that comes to mind is the old school Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the light orange, the creamsicles with the Buccaneer chewing the wheat on the helmet. That's a good uniform. Huge fan of that one.
Give me the shorts that the Chicago White Sox used to wear when Bill Beck was their owner.
Gosh.
Put those boys in shorts for a season.
That's rough. That is rough.
See those guys' knees. That's good. How about you two?
Brett looks like he's thinking. I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for some of those throwback powder blues. So even like the Brewers or the Royals throwback powder blues wouldn't be bad. Honestly, the old Devil Rays throwbacks aren't too bad on the baseball end. And, I mean, the Vancouver Grizzlies are up there. I'm not a big fan of them. I could deal with them for one playoff run. That'd be something different because there's no NBA team with that color scheme, really. So those would be the first few that come to mind for me.
Yeah, the ones that I was thinking of, actually they did this year for the NBA. They brought back those teal Memphis Grizzlies ones from the 90s and early 2000s, and then they brought the old Raptors ones back.
The pinstripes.
The pinstripes with the old timey dinosaur look, and then I forget. There's a couple other ones, but I think they brought some of those NBA ones from the late 90s where kind of that video game age started, which for a lot of us
Magic had some pinstripe ones.
Yeah. Magic had really good ones.
I mean, if we're talking about pinstripes, the Bulls black pinstripe ones are pretty good.
Ooh. You like those, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't like them because they're black. You hate black uniforms.
Yeah.
The Bulls, I'm not a fan of the Bulls going with the black uniforms, but I can do pinstripes.
Ben Adam Kruger from KM3 in Omaha is getting after us on Twitter. He said, how could you guys forget the movie Goodnight Mommy? I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner 3 nights ago, but for some strange reason, I remember that movie title from last week. So Goodnight Mommy.
I forgot that was the name of the movie.
my.
Good grief.
Tim.
That's awesome. Good
Brett's
stuff,
going to
Adam.
watch that thing tonight. You watch. Brett's going to go find Good Night Mommy in German.
Okay, let's see if it even has. Let's take bets if it has a Rotten Tomatoes rating.
This is one of those ones that probably has like a 95% for just no reason at all.
Tim
Oh,
doesn't
it
watch
is.
anything under
It
85.
actually got good reviews. It's 85% on Rotten Tomatoes.
See, when the movie like The Artist wins Best Picture, that's when I
You're
start
right.
to question the taste of
Oh
Right.
my gosh, guys! You should see the. I'm done. I'm not gonna go there.
See you tomorrow, Ben.
Well done, boys. Beyond the headlines. Good stuff there. Austin, let's reopen those phone lines for everybody if they want to sound off on any of our topics. Maybe they've punched a shark. 531-500-4686. Or you can shoot us a text at that very same number, 531-500-4686. More Sports Nightly next. 531-500-4686. That's the number if you want to dial us up with a comment or question or fire us off a text. We mentioned Nick Saban in the last segment of Alabama, and Alabama has announced that they are anticipating, at least to start the season, of only 20% capacity inside their football stadium, which would put it at about 18,000, and no tailgating. That's come up a couple of times here on this program. So there's Bama. We'll see what some of the other SEC schools have to say. I know Arkansas came up with a similar type plan that came out, so it all looks like that's about. We mentioned last night the Chiefs are at about 17,000 to put in Arrowhead for their opening game on September the 10th against the Houston Texans. Ben, I think we're all in favor of Booger McFarland, ESPN analyst, who has done NFL. He had the Booger Mobile in the Monday night games and in the booth. He's been on college broadcasts in the past. He was on a show today where he talked about Nebraska and how important Nebraska is to college football. Let's give it a listen.
You needed the Big Ten. The Big Ten didn't need Nebraska. Let's first and foremost make that distinction. Secondly, the Big Ten wrote Nebraska a check for $52 million. Are you willing to give that back? Are you willing to take away what the Big Ten has brought you from a notoriety standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint? Also, no one was really focusing on Nebraska, Greeny, until they joined the Big Tens. And so I think if you're Scott Frost and you're Nebraska, you better be careful. Just to play 10 or 12 games this fall, I think could be a disastrous situation going forward. Now, some would argue, Paul, you probably could speak on this, that Nebraska had no reason to join the Big Ten in the first place, that they belong in the Big 12. That's another story for another day. But I'm just saying right now, Greeny, from a commitment standpoint, the Big Ten made a commitment to Nebraska, and I think Nebraska should honor that commitment because they needed the Big Ten. You needed the Big Ten. The Big Ten did.
What do you know that?
He's an idiot. Why did Nebraska need the Big Ten? The Big Ten sought Nebraska. You know what I mean? Like, Nebraska was such a big deal when they joined the league. Like, think about what the reaction was, Greg, around the league when we joined it. I remember very specifically the conference realignment and what it was like and what the commissioner had to say about Nebraska when we joined the league. I mean, that's just such an uneducated thing to say. That's a guy that read a headline, made a whole lot of assumptions. And I give a heck of a lot of credit to Mike Greenberg because he fired back going, what are you talking about? You know, like, and he went into a little rant, too, of, you know, basically the points that we all lay out all the time. And for whatever reason, Booger McFarland refused to yield the fact that Nebraska wasn't alone, that there were others involved in this and had the same exact thought process. But for whatever reason, he heard some people say, Dick Vitale even sounded off on Nebraska putting out a tweet the other day. It's like, not only are you a week late to the party, but you're so far off base of what was the actual comment and what was the actual reality that you just look dumb. You look dumb with what your comments were.
You just nailed the point right there. That wasn't from last Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. That was today, a week after all that's kind of been refuted that Pat Forty wrote about the John Deere tractor. All that's been refuted. And now that you've got Iowa and Ohio State planning a peaceful protest outside the Big Ten offices on Friday, the whole Nebraska thing is irrelevant. It should have been from the beginning, but it certainly is now. And there you got Booger out there today going, before Nebraska joined the Big Ten, they were irrelevant. They weren't anything. Excuse me, Booger? They dominated a decade of college football just 3 decades ago. Come on, are you kidding me?
And they had played in 2 consecutive conference championships right before they switched over to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So I don't know how irrelevant that is.
I mean, if you want to dredge up the argument that they shouldn't have left the Big 12, that's fine. You can go down that path. In fact, we've got people here that still do that in Nebraska right now. That's fine. But to still go to the point that Nebraska needs to kind of grovel their way back to the Big Ten is just, it's nonsense, because there was never any cutting comment from Nebraska that they wanted to leave the Big Ten. They just wanted to try to play some games to play football this fall, and they were looking at the option that the Big Ten wasn't going to play, that they could play. It's so silly. But Booger's an easy target for us because he's
Booger
good.
McFarland.
He's not very good. Quite frankly. All right, 531-546-86. Back with our final segment of the hour next. Our Sports Nightly Hotline brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. 531-546-86. Russell in Council Bluffs has an idea for us, Ben. He says maybe the University of Nebraska Press could defray an athletic deficit by publishing a paperback full of Big Ten jokes. Have Husker fans send in their entries for a Big Ten joke contest and edit them into a book. It'd be a bestseller. I would buy several.
There you go. Thinking
Christmas
outside
gifts.
the box.
Christmas gifts for everybody.
Yeah.
A Big Ten joke book. Yeah. Somebody did kind of a thing about kind of poking fun at every school in the Big Ten Conference a year or so ago. I remember reading something about that. But creativity, that's what can maybe come out of all of this. Major League Baseball is still not able to put all their teams on the field on the same day. The Cincinnati Reds had to cancel today's game of the Royals. They had one positive test over the weekend, and they shut down their series with the Pirates, and they were supposed to play the Royals tonight. They're just being extra precautious. They don't want 1 to turn into 6 to turn into 12 or up to 18, 19 or whatever the Marlins ended up getting to. But it does look like they'll play a doubleheader tomorrow in Kansas City to get those 2 games in. And one of the starting pitchers, Ben, for the Royals tomorrow is going to be Matt Harvey, who the Royals picked up on the free agent wire a couple of weeks ago. He's been working out of their auxiliary camp. He's going to make a start tomorrow. How about Matt Harvey?
Yeah.
Isn't he the Dark Knight?
Yeah. I mean, he was pitching in the World Series against the Royals. And speaking of playing against their former team, Mike Moustakas will be activated off the injured list tomorrow for the Reds, so he'll get to play against the Royals. That's good news. I mean, the latest batch of testing with Cincinnati yielded no positive tests, but they have a couple of guys that they're investigating further with contact tracing, so that's why they decided to change the game from today to tomorrow. It sounds like everybody's healthy. I don't know that everybody will necessarily be available tomorrow for Cincinnati just because they've got to go through that contract tracing protocol, but obviously they wanted to another day to do their due diligence. But it sounds like tomorrow will be the first day that all the teams in Major League Baseball will be in action.
It has not happened in the month of August yet that Major League Baseball's had everybody. They thought Saturday was going to be it, and then the Reds situation popped up because that was the day the Cardinals were back for the first time this month. The Cardinals have whipped out a bunch of games already. They've played 5 tonight. It's their 6th game since coming back. They've had 2 doubleheaders already. They swept the White Sox in a doubleheader. They split with the Cubs yesterday, and they're playing the Cubs again tonight in a single game. Cardinals are going to have a batch of doubleheaders to try to get caught up in this whole thing. We will catch up tomorrow night with our Major League Baseball insider, Lane Grindle, to get his thoughts about a lot of things, including Fernando Tatis. And I saw Lane on Twitter earlier today. He's in our camp, Ben. He was in Camp Tatis after last night's deal.
I've watched probably 6 or 7 different Major League games, or at least parts of them so far tonight, and every single one of them have played the highlight and have had their announcers sound off on it. There's a few of them that are like, yeah, I see both points, and kind of played the middle, but everybody else was on the side of the Padres. I haven't heard a single person adamant that that's not what you're supposed to do. So
how about we talk about unwritten rules next hour? Are you guys up for that?
I think we could do that.
All right. Unwritten sports rules. That's our top 10 list. Looking forward to it. You ought to be too. You have nowhere to go but to come back and listen to that.